Hey, NFL Spotlight listeners, Ari Meirov here, starting today's episode on a bit of a somber note. As soon as we finished recording today's episode, which was NFL owner meeting centric, we got some tragic news on an NFL owner. Colts owner Jim Irsay has passed away at the age of 65. And this is one of the great owners in football, somebody who loved his team, loved his city, loved the organization, loved his players, loved everyone throughout his entire organization. And gone too soon at the age of 65. The Colts announced that he passed away peacefully in his sleep on Wednesday, but this is just a man who really was one of the original owners in the NFL, started as a ball boy, just picking up jock straps, ended up becoming a GM, was an owner in his mid 30s, and really was one of the more outspoken owners, one of the more says what he thinks type of owners, but just truly does what is best for the team and the organization. I mean, there are so many endless stories that are public. There are more that are going to come out that are more private here in the coming days. But I just think about, his Super Bowl winning team back in '06 with the Colts. He brought the entire organization, like every single person, family member, down all the way to the janitorial staff to Miami for that Super Bowl, which was not common back then to do that. But that's how much he cared about every single person there in the organization. And really, any player who talks about Jim through that Colts building from the early days of, the early 2000s with Peyton and Edgerrin James and Marvin Harrison and Reggie Wayne, down to the players who were there as of recently, they all only have positive things to say about Jim Irsay. He was never scared to say what he thinks. I just think about a couple of years ago, him going out there and being the only owner who came out and publicly said Dan Snyder in Washington must sell his team. That is not common among the ownerships. And he came out and said it. So he knew what was right. He said what had to be said. And he's going to be missed over here in the NFL. He has not really been in the public eye over here over the last year. If you saw the Colts draft room, last month, his daughter was sitting in his seat. But it's really, really sad news over here with Colts owner Jim Irsay passing away. Rest in peace to a great man, and our thoughts and prayers are with him and his family. Welcome in. It is the Thursday, May 22 edition of the NFL Spotlight Show. I am your host, Ari Meirov. We did a bit of a preview yesterday of the owners' meetings, and it was one where usually the May meetings, for people who don't know, it's a pretty boring one, not much going on. Well, the May one this year was pretty intense, pretty crazy, and a lot going on. We have a lot to recap and talk about what happened in Minnesota, what happened in those rooms, what were the results. Let me bring in my good friend Ben Allen. Ben, what's going on? It is great to see you. I mean, you've been talking about the league for a long time. I'm not sure how much you've talked about the May meetings before, but this one was quite relevant this year.
Yeah, I know. It's something that, when I was working for the NFL, we obviously had to watch out a lot for. The offseason calendar, is always loaded. It's like, all right, what's the next event? But usually not a whole lot of consequential stuff happens this time of year. But there was a lot of exciting stuff happening this time, and Philly fans rejoice, and Green Bay fans probably didn't care as much as Mark Murphy and the rest of the NFL. But the tush push is here to stay for at least this next season. We'll see if it gets another vote next year. But on Wednesday, the NFL owners voted whether or not the play would still be allowed in 2025. They ultimately got the play saved for another year. Jeffrey Lurie is feeling very happy. His dreams are coming true. You had discussed that Commissioner Roger Goodell probably was one of the big driving forces for wanting to see this play out of the game. They end up coming a couple votes short of being able to ban it. How do you think the Eagles were able to persuade everyone to, or not everyone, but at least enough people to say, no, we're going to let this stay around for at least a little bit longer?
Yeah, it's a really great question. And just, it was such an intense situation because I mentioned this yesterday, but when Roger Goodell and Troy Vincent and all these prominent figures in the league office want something to happen at these meetings, usually they find a way to make it happen. They'll twist some arms. They'll, promise an owner, hey, we'll give you a draft at some point in your city if you do this. Like they'll do some crazy things to make it happen. So when the word got out that this is something that Roger and people in the league office want to happen, I felt a little bit confident again. I said it as a guest yesterday, but my prediction was this would get banned. And the final results here were 22-10. And I'll give you a good example just to show people what I mean. A few years ago, NFL, Roger Goodell, people in the league office, they wanted to add flexing to the Thursday night football schedule. In the March meetings, they did not have enough votes. There were a bunch of owners who were against it. The May meetings come around, they all of a sudden get two, three, four extra votes to get it to pass. They use those 2 months that happened from the March to the May meetings to twist some arms, and it happened. So I thought that would happen here come Wednesday morning when it was about to vote at 10 a.m. Eastern time when they all went into the room. That meeting that morning on Wednesday morning was over an hour and a half. And what happened was interesting because Jeff Lurie, the Eagles owner, is there. John Ferrari, who is this Eagles assistant GM, who's very much involved in these type of things, he was there. And then there was the surprise guest, and that was Jason Kelsey, the former longtime Eagles center, who he was supposed to be at the Sports Emmys in New York City on Tuesday night. He was not there. He was on his way to Minnesota to basically advocate and say why the tush push is a play that should still be in the NFL, why he believes it is a safe play, of course, being somebody who has been involved for a long time. And it was kind of WWE style where it's like, I'm coming in and I'm going to show you why. And they put up all these video boards and they explained everything. And I truly believe that usually the NFL and their executives and Roger Goodell, they do a good job of convincing to change votes. They changed some votes because last time in March, it was about a 16-16 split as to who wants this and who does not want this. You need 24 votes to pass. Ultimately, over here, 6 guys moved over to the ban this thing, but they still needed 2 more people to go. And I think Jason Kelsey and Jeffrey Lurie, especially, speaking for over an hour in that room and basically showing the data and showing how they practice the play and what they do and what the quarterback has to do. And Dr. Alan Sills, who was a very big proponent of getting rid of this, he was not in the room. He was not in Minnesota for these meetings for whatever reason. So that kind of probably helped them as well. And eventually the owners go into the privilege meeting, which is all the owners, nobody else, no Jason Kelsey there. They do the vote, they count everything up, and it ends up being a 22 owners say to get rid of it. 10 other owners say we want to keep it. And that is essentially 2 votes short over here. Now, it's going to be here in 2025. The Eagles, they celebrated right away. Their social media account on X, they posted a picture of, power forward, keep on moving up, push on, I think was the exact wording. They posted a 22-minute video on YouTube of just tush pushes exclusively. So they trolled their way around over here, but I still think this is something that will come up again probably next year at the owners' meetings. And the reality now is they have 22 people ready to move forward with this. This next calendar year, if Roger Goodell and Troy Vincent still want this out of the game, all they got to do now is they're going to have about 10 months of here until the next March meetings to try to change 2 owners' minds over here to get rid of it. But for the 2025 NFL season, it is here to stay, and the Eagles are going to move forward with it. But I'm not here ready to say that it's going to be here for the long run still.
Yeah, that was what I wanted to follow up with. So essentially, they could just keep doing this every year, right? There's not actually a way that they could like institute it for like a part of like a short period of time, right? Would that have to be like a collective bargaining agreement for it to be like a more serious long-term thing? Or is there really like in theory, any play could be, I guess, discussed every single year? Is that the like kind of the case?
Yeah, I mean, you could insert things into a rule book. You could remove things from a rule book. Obviously, the competition committee, they meet every single year at the owners' meetings. They were there also in Minneapolis. Like, there's these things go on throughout the course of a year. But if you want to talk about this again next year, you could talk about it again next year. It's perfectly normal. So I do think it's going to come up again next year, especially if the Eagles keep on doing it, especially if we have another instance of what happened in the NFC Championship game where friend of the show, Frankie Luva, was jumping over the line 1,000 times. I don't think that is good TV. Wherever Roger Goodell was during that game, whether he was in his basement eating M&Ms or at the game, whatever it was, I don't think he enjoyed watching that. I think he wants us out of the game. I think he wants to see teams actually get a yard, whether it's giving the ball to the running back or throwing a fade or whatever it is. I don't think he enjoys watching this rugby style play, and he wants to get rid of it. And the catastrophic injury element, which is what the NFL keeps on telling us, I think that's on their mind as well. So it's going to be here for another year, but they could bring this back again next year and try to get rid of it. And they changed the wording here in order to try to get more owners on their side. The initial wording in March was a little bit too complex. The wording this time was like, you cannot push or pull anybody anywhere on the field, end of story. And that still was not enough. So I think they're going to revisit it again, but for the time being, it's still here. And for what it's worth, this is just my personal opinion on this. If it was to get banned today, I believe that Jalen Hurts is just so strong and so skilled, and the Eagles' offensive line is just so good that they would be able to do this play without the pushing. I really do believe that, but it's still here. They're still going to do it. But even if the NFL took it away, I still think the Eagles would be successful at quarterback sneaks. And if they took it away, I also think just handing the ball off to Saquon Barkley with that offensive line is not a bad idea either. So it's still here, but I also think the Eagles are going to be fine regardless of whenever it happens. And I think ESPN reported this, Ben. I saw Steph Wickersham report it. Jeff Lurie in that owners meetings basically said, whatever you guys decide later today, it's a win-win for us. We're going to be fine. So they obviously still have it, but I think the Eagles would have been okay if they got rid of it as well.
That's a really funny point. I mean, everyone always brings up the amount of weight that Jalen Hurts can squat. Everyone always talks about how good the Eagles' offensive line is. I mean, yeah, the quarterback sneak was going to remain in the game no matter what. So I really do wonder, like, if this were to have been banned, like
Yeah.
what the percentage difference would have been.
Yeah.
With one, how much do they run a quarterback sneak as compared to what they had been running with the tush push? And two, what the level of success would be. Because I feel like you said, it'd probably be pretty damn similar. Maybe they don't call it as often, but I do think that it would be interesting to see what the differences are there.
Well, I'll tell you this. So it was kind of funny because the Eagles put out that 22-minute video of just tush pushes. I watched some of them. If you watch it closely, Jalen Hurts sometimes gets the first down or the touchdown without a push. Like he's able to
Oh
do it
yeah.
on his own. So there's an element of it where I think they would have been fine. My bold prediction, again, I don't really make predictions, but if this would have been banned, my prediction is the first play of the year in that game versus the Cowboys would have been a quarterback sneak just to do it for the sake of it. Maybe they'll still do it, but I do think they would have done that in the first game of the year if this thing would have been banned.
It's so funny because so many people, obviously, Sirianni has gone full circle with being somebody that, it's Philadelphia fans. They're going to get mad, they're going to get upset and everything, but he's really embraced that culture of what it means to be there in Philadelphia. And I feel like if there is any coach that would do that, it feels like it would be him. And also, it feels like if there was any owner that would give the okay, like I feel like that's something that would be discussed before it took place. I feel like Jeffrey Lurie would be like, do it every play the first drive. He wouldn't care. He's like, just do it.
Yeah, I mean, another thing about this also is I know the Packers were the team who proposed this. There's been, I think I mentioned this back in March when we did the first owners meetings talk about this on the episode. There's been a belief for a while that the Packers became the poster boy for this, but this was really the NFL telling them, hey, could you guys propose this and put it out there? And I do think that's kind of true. And part of this, and of course, the NFL gave Green Bay a draft, so the Packers were like, fine, we'll do it for you. So I do think there's an element of that as well of here because the cow was let out of the bag a little bit with the Lions playoff seating proposal, where their president, Rod Wood, a couple of months ago said, Troy Vincent called us and told us to do this. Like that was not even the Lions proposal. So there's a lot of behind the scenes stuff with all of this as well. I know the Eagles and Packers play in week 10 this year and it's going to be fun, but I do have a bit of a feeling over here that it's not all Packers over here, and they're going to get all the hate for it, and it's fine. And that Week 10 game is going to be very fun. I do think it's important to note that. One last thing on this, Ben, we actually got the results of here of which 10 teams sided with the Eagles here. I found it very interesting that three AFC East teams were on there, which is the Jets, the Dolphins, and the Patriots. The reason I say that is because Sean McDermott, their head coach, has been very public about wanting to get rid of this. And from what I've heard, their owner, Terry Pagula, has been one of the most outspoken owners in these meetings about getting rid of it. So I just found it interesting. Of course, the Bills in the AFC Championship game, they used this play and they failed. I just found it interesting that three of their teams in their own division were like, no, we're going to keep this here just for the sake. I don't know if that's the reason, but I do wonder if they just did that just to stick it to the Bills a little bit.
I love the pettiness of the NFL. One of the other things that we discussed on yesterday's episode before all of the voting actually took place was the idea that the playoff seeding could change, that we would see teams be basically slotted according to what their record was, not just the top four seeds being the divisional winners. This isn't going to be changing this upcoming season because there wasn't even a vote. I was surprised to see that it didn't take place. You already gave me a decent explainer as to why it didn't happen. Can you go through why the vote ended up not even happening at all?
Yeah, so we said on yesterday's episode, I don't think this is going to pass. And when every one of the owners and the membership walked into the hotel this morning, they realized they were nowhere close to the vote. So why embarrass ourselves here and do a vote and have like six hands raised over here or six, slips written that we're going to vote for this thing and just get embarrassed here? The numbers get leaked and reported. We don't want that. So they just withdrew the proposal from voting on it this year. But this is the other part of it, which is important, is that these conversations are still ongoing. And I think this idea of reseeding the 1 through 7, the top four teams are not division winners. That is something that I think is going to happen in the future. And the NFL and the executives there, they presented this data of just how many quarterbacks last year in week 17 and week 18 were sitting because their playoff positioning was already set, where they were locked in to a seed. And if you remember last year, we had a point where the Eagles were sitting and the Rams were sitting and all these teams were like the Texans were sitting players, the Chiefs were sitting players. We had, Carson Wentz starting for the Chiefs and we had Jimmy Garoppolo starting for the Rams. It was who's the Eagles backup? Like it was just all these different things were going on where the NFL, they want competitive football there in week 17 and week 18. And of course, the NFL and their TV packages, it's very important as well. And one of the great traditions in football is that final week of the year, game 272 is going to be on NBC Sunday Night Football. If not for the Vikings and Lions playing and duking out for the number 1 seed, there could have been a scenario where there were no good games there to put on that game on that slate. So that's something that the NFL owners and executives were basically shown in that meeting room. But changing the entire format, it's not so simple. And especially if you're going to make divisional games not as important and the conference games kind of more important, you might also have to readjust the entire schedule. So from what I think is going to happen here is those discussions happened, those presentations were made, those bullet points were shown, and essentially whenever the NFL does go to an 18-game schedule, whenever that means you're going to have a whole nother package to sell to a different streamer or whatever it is to make more money, they're going to change everything when it comes to the scheduling format and also the postseason format as well. And that's when I think it's going to go into effect. So I think this was more of a just conversation and let's just show you what we're thinking about right now. But it was not necessarily something that really had a chance of passing today. So again, 2026, 2027, whenever the 18-game idea finally goes into effect and the NFL and NFLPA agree to something, that's when I think this entire thing will go into effect. And the NFL is going to change everything around over here. We know they're working on 16 international games a year. They really want to change things over here. So whenever that happens, the 18-game schedule, that's when I think playoff format changes, schedule structure changes, and all these different things are going to go into effect. So this was more of a lead up in a conversation of what to expect in the future is the way I would explain this.
Well, the first two items we talked about, no changes for this upcoming season. The third one, Interesting to me. Not a huge thing, but we're going to see a change now. The onside kick can be declared at any point during the game. Obviously, just a little over a year ago, you could do this whenever you wanted to. You didn't have to declare anything. It could be sneaky, sneaky. I can't do that anymore now with the changes that they had to the dynamic kickoff this past year. There was also only the ability to do it late in the game. Now, if you can do it whenever, I don't see this as being a huge change. They also moved the kickoff line 1 yard for it. Am I wrong? Is there more to this than what I'm seeing, or is this more of just a little like, yeah, why not?
All detail. I mean, like, just think about the Chiefs Eagles Super Bowl for a second. It was a blowout. Under the old rules, you only could do the onside kick in the fourth quarter. Now you could do it whenever you're trailing. So the Chiefs, when they were down by 30 points or whatever it is, they could have started doing it in the third quarter. That's essentially the change you're going to have with this rule. Moving everybody 1 yard closer means you have a quicker distance to get to the ball to have a chance to recover it. So the NFL's success rate on onside kicks was 6%. They want to move it up a little bit and just make it a little bit more exciting. My thing is, I don't think this is really going to work out so well because of the dynamic kickoff rule now, the surprise onside kick element is dead. So whenever you want to do an onside kick, you must declare. So the other team, I don't care, you're 1 yard close or whatever it is, they still know the onside kick is coming. So that's the issue with this. And that's why I don't think it's going to make such a big difference.
Well, on the fun side of things, Ari, you and I handed out our awards a little bit earlier in the year of who would be getting our fake NFL honors stuff. We came up with a few awards that weren't listed, not a real thing. But one of the things we talked about appears to be real now. The NFL will be adding a new award in large part thanks to Deion Dawkins of the Bills, former offensive lineman Andrew Whitworth. Protector of the year. It's going to go out to the best offensive lineman, going to be showing love to the big guys up front. I'm a fan of the awards coming out for some of these position groups that often don't get a chance. Like, you're very unlikely to see an MVP come off the offensive line anytime soon. So it's great to see these guys get a little bit of extra recognition. I mean, this feels like a slam dunk to me, right? Like, good move.
I mean, I love it. I mean, this is the NFL Spotlight Show. We love spotlighting people who deserve more recognition. Those offensive linemen never get talked about. They don't get any awards. They the only time they get talked about is if they have a holding penalty. So this is pretty cool that we're giving out an award, and it's pretty cool that a fake made up award that we talked about back in January is now a real thing in the NFL. So this is a new thing that will be coming to NFL honors. From my understanding, this is not going to be like an official AP award. I think offensive linemen, whether it's former or current, are going to be voting on it. I don't think everything has been ironed out yet, but my vote this past year was Joe Tooney of the Chiefs, who's now with the Bears, because he's a left guard and he came in and became a left tackle for the Chiefs en route to making the Super Bowl. So that was my pick before the Super Bowl. And then, of course, the Eagles steamrolled him. But yeah, that was my pick this past year. But it's pretty cool because there are so many great guys out there in the NFL, whether it's a Tristan Wirfs or a Penei Sewell or a Lane Johnson or a Jordan Mailata, Trent Williams forever. These guys are all guys who deserve more attention and should get an award. So this is a pretty cool thing. And it's something I love that the NFL is doing. If I had one more thing I wish the NFL did is also create a most improved player award. So the comeback player of the year does not have to be whether it's an injured player or a player who came back from being bad. I think separate those two awards. But this is a good start over here to have an offensive lineman get an award as well, because those guys, they deserve some recognition for sure.
And finally, before we get out of here, one of your favorite parts of the year, Hard Knocks. They have decided who is going to be doing what during this upcoming year. The training camp edition of Hard Knocks, the classic, will be going to the Buffalo Bills. We'll be seeing Josh Allen and company, everything going on there, from all their new extended players to an angry James Cook. Going to be a lot to talk about there. And then during the season, instead of one team, we've seen some of the teams in the past, NFC East, you're getting 4 squads. I'm very curious how they're going to break that down. Very curious how those coaches are going to be feeling about the fact that there's so many. I wonder if the Giants are going to have PTSD. What do you think of all this?
Yeah, I mean, so last year, this is the new thing. Every single year now, in season edition, it's going to be a division. This past year, it was the AFC North. This year, they're going to the NFC East, which for me is always entertaining because they've now gone 20 straight years that the defending NFC East champion did now win it the very next year. They never have back to back champions. So, Eagles won it this past year. Could they break that? We will see. But I can't believe the Giants are back on this thing. I mean, they probably want to like just go nuts that we're really doing this again. But the NFL could force you to do it, and they're clearly forcing the Giants to do it. Luckily for them, this is not the off-season edition, but it's a very, very fun division. And of course, this is a division that had the Eagles and the Commanders make the playoffs last year. The Cowboys are the Cowboys, and the Giants, of course, we know they have potentially a rookie quarterback who might be starting by then. So it's a very, very entertaining division. The training camp edition is actually even more interesting to me because for years and years, it was always a bad team will end up on Hard Knocks, or a team who's coming off a struggling season who will end up on Hard Knocks. But this kind of went underreported a bit. But in March or early April, during those owners meetings in March, they actually loosened up the rules about who could be on Hard Knocks and be forced to do Hard Knocks, and essentially a bunch of good teams are now eligible to do it. So the Buffalo Bills ending up on Hard Knocks, that would not have happened under the old rules, but they changed the rules now to basically allow some of these better teams to be on, and the Buffalo Bills are first up. And I think, I'm not sure if the Bills were forced or they actually volunteered to do this, but I do know this is their final year in their current stadium, and I do think they want to bring some attention to it. So that could be part of it, but so many storylines there. I mean, this is a team that, of course, wants to get over the hump. The Josh Allen element coming off the MVP, the contract. He has a big wedding coming up soon. That's interesting. I'm sure they'll follow that along. The wide receiver room is interesting. You mentioned it, but the James Cook element with no extension yet, as somebody who just knows the behind the scenes of stuff, that one could be really interesting because that negotiation has been really difficult so far, I'll say. And the person representing James Cook right now, still the agent, is the same agent who has given makes things a little bit hard on teams. I mean, Shamar Stewart at Cincinnati right now, same agent as him. If you look at the history of J.K. Dobbins, who is still a free agent, that's same agent. So like, there's if they go behind the scenes on that one, it would be quite fun. I would just say that. So we're gonna see what ends up happening here, but I am excited to see a really, really good team, a team who consistently makes the playoffs, consistently wins the division, to have the cameras on them there with the Buffalo Bills. So a bit of a surprise they announced this all of a sudden. We usually get it closer to June-ish. Of course, right now we are in the end of May, so a little bit earlier than usual, but some good announcements here, and the Bills are going to be on the training camp edition. The NFC East will be on the in-season edition, and of course, we did not get an off-season edition this year because everyone watched the Giants last year, and they were like, no way, Jose.
Yeah. You think Joe Shane is going to be hiding in his office a whole lot during the season?
I mean, the lucky thing for Joe, and again, I think Joe is a really smart guy, and I think he had a really, really great offseason. The good thing for him is that the in-season edition focuses more on the locker room and the coaches and the players, and not as much in the front office. So we might not see Joe as much this time around compared to the off-season edition. But what we will see is the Eagles and Saquon Barkley. So the Giants can't really escape that.
There's always a story. Always a story. And because there's always a story, there's always a reason to watch NFL Spotlight, listen to NFL Spotlight, YouTube, Apple, Spotify. If you're a Spotify listener, we've got the videos going up there. A lot of fun stuff going on in Spotify. That was what I was told to say. So definitely go check us out there as well. We just hit 1,000 subscribers. So thank you all to the YouTube. We have been slowly growing that. It is difficult getting all this stuff. We know how many of you are watching, and we know how many of you are watching without hitting subscribe. So just take a second. It doesn't take a whole lot of time. Helps us out. Ari and I are dearly appreciative of everyone who has been tuning in. There's a lot going on during the off season for us, trying to build everything up, the team here at the 33rd team. But we are very grateful for all that has been, taken from the fans and everyone else that's been helping us grow. So much appreciation.
Yep, and that would do it here for our Thursday, May 22 edition of the NFL Spotlight Show. Like I said on yesterday's episode, if you have not seen our special Spotlight guest of the week, John Spytek, Raiders GM, go check it out. It is on YouTube, on Apple, on Spotify, wherever you listen to us. Go check it out. It's actually the most watched episode we've had on YouTube. So a really, really good, really, really great conversation with him, and we will be back here tomorrow morning to wrap up the week and talk about whatever else is happening around the NFL. So we will see you then.